Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are premiering. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a massive shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a big shout out to Abraham Muhammad, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Billy Highvault, Burn Fat Till My Stomach Is As Flat As The Earth, Chow Young Cat, Dank, Dave Rakia Gafford, David Wayne Foster, Edwin Johnson, Owen Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, God Rockin, Jeranism, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Nedrick, Life is Short, Matt, Nagara, Naibai, Qatar Craig, Reinhardt, Renee, Sally Ballis, Silver Umbrella, Skeptic936, Texas Mike, these ones are a mouthful, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon and Zodiac Clock app, theflatearthchannel.com, Tina Baker and Tom Hawkins. So massive shout out to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now, I do believe we are joined by a few people in both Discord and G+, although I've not said a great deal to any of them, so I'll raise the mic on all of them and you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for the first live show. You still there, 10th man?
I am here.
Ah, great, as I have actually said hello to you already.
Who's in Discord?
We've got Dougie, Fuzzy Ewok, and I believe Kosho, Redman, and what else?
That's enough for a conversation. So let's
Texas
have a
Mike.
conversation.
Hey,
So-
Texas Mike. Just got a shout out.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you.
Hey, Nathan.
Hello.
Who's speaking?
Texas Mike. One of the last
Texas
guys I
Mike.
just shouted out on the...
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, Texas Mike.
Sky.
How you doing?
Good.
I
You just
got a
shouted
full
me out on
moon here.
Patreon, so
I got a
I
full
mainly
moon
just
here.
listen.
Fair enough. Very nice to have you. Thank
Texas-
you very much for your support, Texas Mike.
Texas Mike, can you look out your window to see the moon right now in Texas?
Let me look.
I have a very
Yes, ma'am.
bright full moon in California right now.
10th man, I got moon pictures this morning. You want to see them?
Yeah, post it up. I'm just looking at it live right now. It's dark still outside for me. It's 5:38 in the morning. Just wondering if you could see it and where is it in your...
I don't see the moon right now. The sun is barely up.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's not one of those days where they're both up together.
No, I wouldn't do that tonight.
It's low. I can't see it, but it's possible it's here.
Who said that?
Oh, I did. I was walking home a little bit ago. I noticed it was a full moon. You know, full
Yeah,
moons,
but-
the sun, the moon doesn't rise with the sun. You guys
I'm
know
just
that,
saying
though.
that you've never seen the sun and the moon, no matter what shadows are on the moon
He
and
said
the
the
same
moon doesn't.
sky at the same time.
He said the moon doesn't rise with the sun. That's what he said.
Oh, okay.
Not during a full moon.
So what are you saying then? When does it show up at the same time?
New moon,
Sky.
roughly. You'll notice that during the new moon phase, it'll either follow the sun or it'll lead the sun. And as the lunar phase progresses, it'll move further away. Full moon is usually about opposite in the sky.
Gotcha. So this is a circuit that it does on the 28-day basis, correct?
I find it's been.
You're breaking up. Yeah, I can't hear him.
Oh, I was holding my button down.
Well, I heard you say I was holding my button down, but everything else was blank. Yeah, nothing.
Is that
All
a
right,
common
Texas
thing
Mike.
here, or is it?
No, you just gotta hold it down longer so he can hear you.
Yeah, I hold it down pretty.
No, something's wrong with his mic. Okie doke.
Alrighty then.
We'll get that later, I guess. So did you put those pictures up, Texas Mike?
Did you notice I trimmed out the call out from QE to Dr. Danny Faulkner? Did you see that?
Yeah. I haven't heard it, but I was on the show when you did it, and I heard it on my second hearing of the show yesterday. I had to go to the dentist, so I couldn't see all of it, but I mean, hear all of it again. But I enjoyed the original, and I'm glad you trimmed it out and put it out there because these are good challenges for people on both sides to see. Hopefully, there'll be a further debate on this.
Indeed. Hopefully the good doctor and Quantum Racer face off and continue where they left off on their email string back in 2016, June.
Yeah. I wasn't aware that Kiwi ever had any back and forth with him, but I guess there was one time, as you just mentioned. And then I had seen a video clip of Danny Faulkner, in a sense, mocking, I can't remember, it's been a while, the flat earthers. And I didn't care for it. I didn't think it was backed with any proof. So I knew he stood on that side already. But now that it's up again, and he being in this world of science, as he wants to say, and QE knowing the world of science, this should be a good match.
I'd have liked to have been a fly on the wall when QE heard it coming over the radio. Oh, I remember that. You can see his eyebrow going up. I remember Dr. Danny. Yeah, I remember him. And then he says, "There has never been any flat Earth claims I can't refute." And you can just see QE going, "Ah, yeah, let's dig out that email string."
Yeah.
I hope a few people mirror it. I sent the clip that I released an hour or two ago to like everyone, Mark Sargent, Dirth.
Good.
I rattled off a whole list of people, individuals, rather than just sending it to groups in Skype, which I typically do with the shows. I actually sent it to a few individuals and said, "Look, this is Quantum Eraser calling out an not an astrophysicist, an astronomer, PhD. The good doctor needs to know about it. Please, can you share it?" So I'm hoping a few people will actually do that.
Yeah, and normally, as book tours go, it's a tour, right? So they go and speak on different shows to promote their book, or they're in storefronts, coffee shops, signing their books as they're people wait in line to buy it. So if he goes on that kind of a tour and we're privy to it, then perhaps we can send that clip to the host that's going to do some back and forth talk with them and say, "Oh, by the way, on our email, someone's asking a question about."
Yeah, it'd be great if someone on the book tour was just like, according to a chap called Quantum Eraser on YouTube, he has a long string of emails and specifically was asking about how do you have gas pressure without a container, and your only response was to point out that we have a gradient. That's pretty weak. What about the second law, Mr. Scientist Doctor?
That is great. That is great.
I love it. Fun times.
Yeah, you gotta love it, man. This is.
Hold on. Was there someone trying to say something on Discord? Go ahead.
No, I was just joining in the laughter with you guys. That was amazing. What did
Something wrong with your mic, Kosho?
No, there's nothing wrong with my mic.
Okay.
All right, it's my ears.
Yeah, it's me. It's my hearing. My bad.
No, it's the controls, Nathan.
I think you're right. It's something. What I mean by that is your audio that we receive has issues, not that your mic specifically. Yeah, it might be the push to talk button, which is typically the problem. I hate that it never works properly on any device I've ever used it on. But there we go. People still use it.
Yeah, I know. It's your show always is so good with that. So it's.
Oh, could this be a complete blag? And actually, you don't have any issues, but you want to have a little dig at my show, like it's a technical issue I have, perhaps. Let's see if my guess is correct.
Oh no! Don't mistake that. It was.
Fascinating.
No, I was simply asking if you recall QE's response, because I'm curious.
Which response to what specifically?
If he asked him, he said, well, the silly question, how gas pressure in a vacuum, and then he said something about the gradient. So I'm curious.
I see. What was QE's response to that? His response was to say, yeah, and...
Well, what causes the... Surely not.
Jolly good.
Well, that's what would happen. It would go into and fill the available space, and we wouldn't hear you anymore.
Right.
What is it
there
with?
it
Yeah, you're just coming in and out, Coach Show. Something's not good today with your button or something. Well, surely, Nathan, they could.
Well, I did hear that. Yeah, you got QE a computer, so hopefully he can control it and maybe.
What is he rambling on about?
No idea what he's babbling about.
How does a computer got to do with the question? Anyway, sure.
Well, I answered the question. I was saying that when QE actually takes control of the computer, these issues with the audio won't.
What your issues with your audio won't occur when QE takes control of his computer for my show. What are you babbling about?
Yeah, I think
on your show with QE's computer.
Right. So the answer to your question, which I've already given, I would respond with, what causes that gradient?
It doesn't address where you get gas pressure from. So gas pressure gradient.
Well, I would say it was from the weight.
So a gas pressure gradient would be a delta of gas pressure. You can't have a gas pressure gradient without gas pressure, and you can't have gas pressure without a container.
Is that right? Could you have gas pressure maybe with just weight? Could weight create...
Like weight? What do you mean weight?
Why don't you...
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean weight?
Weight. Like if you had a very fat woman and you sat her on top of your lap or something.
So something pressing on a scale, something like a fat woman. Well, she wouldn't be a gas now, would she? She's just a fat woman. You can press her down on a scale, but gas would expand in all directions.
That's right, but gas does have mass, right? Gas, solids, liquids, they all have...
Yeah, but the mass of the gas would expand in all directions. You didn't seem to parrot that bit.
Well, of course, unless there were a pressure. I think they call this
What's pressure?
equilibrium.
Pressure.
Mhm.
What's pressure?
That's right, pressure caused by
What
the
is
weight.
pressure? Long pause. Strange, given that you use that word. What is pressure?
Oh, pressure is it's described as a force that is over a specific surface area.
Oh, right.
You can describe it that
So
way.
the surface area being the surface
Mm-hmm.
area of the container.
No, being the surface area of anywhere you're.
You seem to be cutting out again at this crucial moment now, don't you, Kosho? Yeah, we've already
There's
gone over
probably
this.
something wrong with
We've got gas.
I can hear him in
Yeah.
Discord perfectly fine, just to let you.
Oh, yeah, well,
Anyway,
I was hoping my button was working well.
Yeah, Discord's working fine. It's probably a connection between Discord and whatever they use.
thank you for the distraction. So we've already covered this, Kosho.
It is funny how that works, but
Gas expands in all directions now, doesn't it?
yeah, there's something called the hydrostatic equilibrium. Equilibrium here refers to that expansion that you're talking about, and the pressure
Good.
caused by the
Good.
weight.
Kosho.
Yeah, could you give us the formula for it?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, give me just 1 minute. I'll give you some.
While he's getting the formula, I would like for him to demonstrate that hydrostatic equilibrium in a demonstration.
We haven't figured out what it is yet. We just need it defining first. Hey, Sleeping Warrior, good to have you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
No worries.
He's had his first drop of CBD oil today. He's,
No,
I'm not seeing any reaction from him yet. No kind of consequences or effects at the minute. He's just chilling out as normal. So progress has been made.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Kosho.
No, he's talking about his dog.
Talking about serious things.
No offense.
I'm s-
Heartbreaking though the situation is with your dog. You literally reduced me to tears yesterday. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, let's not make this about your dog. No offense.
No worries. Surely my dog's better than Kosho though, because Kosho talks nonsense.
I don't want to be reduced to tears on my own show. That would be great. Thank you.
that cracked me up when he said it was a big fat woman holding down the gradient.
Well, a lot of times people forget what pressure means, and sometimes a simple but in your face
So what the
visual.
hell? I didn't
kind
just
of
sit here
bring it-
through that silence for you to come back and babble about crap. Hydrostatic equilibrium. Why aren't you defining this? We know what pressure is. We know what pressure is. Force over an area. Then you talked about hydrostatic equilibrium. You're supposed to be toddling along to give us a specific definition of it.
Well, I've posted it in the chat, Nathan.
What, do you want to read it out?
Have yourself. No, not particularly.
Why not? You're not going to back your bullshit then? Okay, we'll just ignore it then.
Well, I've described what it was. I've described what it was.
Define
and
what it is.
You weren't happy
Let's have the
with it,
formula. Just read it out. If you don't want to read it out, fine. I'm not interested then. Let's just
I'm not
get
going
to
to
the
read you
bit.
words that no one's going to grab onto.
Sorry, do you
I've
want to
told
get to the
what it meant.
bit where hydrostatic equilibrium presupposes gravity or not? You're going to read it out or not?
It doesn't predispose gravity.
Presuppose,
What it does is-
not predispose. Are you deaf?
All right, let's just talk about the words then.
Presupposes gravity. Let's get
or
to
we can
that
talk
bit
about
when
that.
you read it out.
We
Or you
never
don't
brought
read
up
it out and we
gravity.
just ignore it from here. We don't need to go through it. We already know. We covered it yesterday. So back to that pressure.
Well, this paper talks about the weight. The
weight
weight is what we discussed. So
what would it be specifically in regards to gravity then?
it's specifically in regards to the weight.
So what, are you going to dance around it? We already know, Kosho. So you don't want to read it out, we know why. Because when we get to the bit about gravity, we'll be pointing it out, won't we?
No, we don't need to get to gravity. That's why.
Oh, really?
But what's weird to me is I know that you have something against gravity.
Oh,
I haven't
really?
brought gravity up.
So we're not
both
going to hear
agree with
about
weight.
hydrostatic equilibrium
Why
then?
not just talk about?
Why don't we just distract and dance around it? You're not going to define it for us then? Why don't you just read out what you posted?
Yeah, this doesn't talk about gravity.
Let's just hear it. What does it talk about?
I'll read you a sentence here. In equilibrium, this upward force, the one that you talked about, the pressure, is balanced.
Sorry, can you read it without
by the
paraphrasing
downward
it?
force.
Sorry.
I'm
Does
reading
it
it
say?
to you,
Does it
Nathan.
say the one you talk about? Is that in the citation? Did you just paraphrase
This
the
is in the
citation?
citation. What I'm reading to you now.
You didn't.
Yes.
You said what
But
you
you're
talk
interrupting
about.
it.
You said what you talk about. The upward force. Was that you paraphrasing? I believe so.
Yes, you asked me about the pressure.
I said,
You
can
there
you
was
read
a-
out your citation and define what hydrostatic equilibrium is? You then started reading and then paraphrased, putting in a claim about what we think. Yeah, don't do that,
No,
Kosho. You don't need to
referred something
paraphrase
you
it.
said. I was bringing a reference so that you could understand that we were talking about what you said.
I don't need you paraphrasing.
So what did you say, Nathan, when I said that the gas is going to have weight? You said it's going to expand in all directions, correct?
That's what gas does.
Okay, that's what I was referring to, Nathan. That's why I said that.
Yeah, so it expands in all directions to fill the available volume. That would be gas law.
Right. This upward force, the one that you just described, must be balanced by the downward force due to the weight of the
Sorry,
slice,
due to the
it
weight?
says.
Downward force due to weight? You mean gravity?
Due to the weight of the air.
Sorry, you're going to get to the point where you dance over the fact that you're talking about gravity here. This force. What force? What force specifically? What's this force
If it
called?
offends you so much, why...
Bro, you're not going to answer. What's the force called?
Weight.
Weight is not a force.
Weight's not a force. You, sir, need to do some learning.
Sorry,
I'm not the one to teach you.
when are we going to get to the point where you describe weight as gravity, with gravity attached to it, with the gravitational pull on that weight that you're describing? Are you ever going to get there?
I don't intend to do that, Nathan, no.
So what forces are we talking about then? The weight of a mass pressing down. Well, gas isn't a physical body that presses down. It presses in all directions, doesn't it?
I've just explained to you why that's balanced by something, Nathan.
No,
And it
not
is a
balanced.
physical
It's a gas.
weight.
It's expanding in all directions. Balanced with what? I asked you what force and you said weight. Well, what weight? It's expanding in all directions. We keep going around in this circle now, don't we? Another silence. Another long
No,
pause.
I'm going to pull up another citation for you, and then I'm not going to spend much more time. 'cause I know your show's
Why?
about to
We've
start.
already smashed this. Hydrostatic
'Cause you don't
equilibrium with
understand
a
that weight is
presupposition
force.
of gravity imposed in part of it, as opposed to what gas actually does. It doesn't weigh down. It expands in all directions. We've gone over it about 4 times. What, now you haven't got much time to stay here and get battered? Yeah, we know, Kosho. You'll make a sharp exit at the point that it's really abundantly clear that you've been smashed. Maybe plead that the show's not running correctly. Notice Kosho hasn't had any mic issues recently. Maybe he'll start cutting
I
out at
noticed
this
that.
point again. Right, Kosho?
Yeah, once that person addressed that he's hearing me fine, if there was no more problems, I noticed that was a bit weird.
No, what? Me and 10th Man saying you're cutting out and you telling us that it's our problem.
Yeah, and then a guy in Discord saying, actually, I hear him fine. In Discord, it's completely fine. And then nothing happened again since then. It was really...
Yeah, so,
Good timing, though,
so your hydrostatic equilibrium has a presupposition of this force of gravity, which you're just calling weight because you want to dance around that fact. It's pretty pathetic. We already know the score with this particular example. It doesn't change the fact that gas expands in all directions. And pressure,
Yeah,
which
this
we
paper
definitely
says
have,
weight.
would be the force exerted on the walls of a container.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum. Most importantly, if you'd like to join this discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show and smash the super chat. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Jibby Jedi, 10th Man, and Arwin in G+. Very good to have you, one and all.
Good morning.
Yo, yo, yo.
Can you hear us, Jibby?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Very good to have you.
Oh, very good, very good.
And we've definitely
Glad to be here.
we've heard from 10th Man already, but hello 10th Man, can you hear us?
Yep.
Jolly good. And we're also joined by a whole bunch of people in Discord. Very good to have you, one and all.
Don't all answer at once, guys.
Excellent. Usual response. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Italy.
No.
Not from New England.
Curvature, you say?
Right, curvature, Earth curvature.
Hmm.
No, nobody's using begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculators at the moment?
The boats are not going over the curve?
About axial rotation. Evidence of axial
There are
rotation?
options.
Not of the Earth-based variety.
No evidence of axial rotation, just rotating skies.
I heard somebody say maybe.
I think it's somebody with their watch page open who's in Discord. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
They can't even define it. Keep calling it a force.
We would need a definition to know if there's signs of it, wouldn't we?
Yeah. We do seem to have an observed phenomena that people seem to believe is something that is, a force, because something seems to move sometimes when they seem to go down, even though down isn't a direction. Einstein defines down as the direction in which time travels more slowly, yet everybody thinks that there's a phenomena there. And when I consider whether or not there actually is a phenomena, there's no phenomena. We just see what we see moving, and it's governed by the medium that it's in. But for some reason, everyone thinks there's gravity and thinks that it's a force. World War I changed that, but everyone still applies the pre-World War I position. It's nonsense.
Objects finding rest is what they call gravity.
You want to add something, Earth-shaped investigator?
Yeah, they still haven't sort of really shown, the distance to the center of the Earth and the variations in gravity itself. So there's supposed to be all these variations in so-called gravity and weights, measuring differently. So the evidence of, gold weighing different in one place and another place, and there's some missing gravity in Canada or something. They still don't have the hard data on that. So short answer, no.
Hello, Chocolate Saying. Good to have you.
Did I hear someone say missing gravity in Canada?
Good morning.
And hello, Paul, as well. Good to have you.
Good morning, all. Gravity in
Canada.
Flying around. Did you read about that?
No, that was an interesting title.
Missing. Yeah.
No, tell us about the missing Canadian gravity.
Everybody feels really light there. They're all lighthearted.
Gold there and you sell
Hey,
it.
Nathan, we've got a bit of criticism in chat. There's a comment and it says, FED is an echo chamber. Do you want to explain why it's not an echo chamber?
Discord server, anyone can pipe up.
Oh, so it's not an echo chamber then, is it? If anybody can
There's a
join.
link in the info box. If you want to join and disagree with anything being said, you can. I might miss you getting off mute when you join the show, but typically speaking, I'm on the ball. I'm not.
Okay. Can we get back to the bacon? I mean, the Canadian gravity?
No, there's a thingy there, super chat. Let's talk about the lighthouse. Mako lighthouse from 34 miles away lay on the beach, right? Can't see it because of the earth curve. But in real world, you can see it. They don't like that.
I wonder why.
As it was mentioned by Earth-Shaped Investigator, any evidence of the R value?
No.
No.
What about any viable scientific hypothesis from any of the fields in their entire history? And those fields would be astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
Not that I'm aware of.
No. I like that guy yesterday, Danny Faulkner, who claims that what was his title? Was he an astrophysicist? I can't remember what his job was.
Astronomy.
Yeah, PhD in astronomy, right? And he claims that there is no issue that flat earthers ever brought up that he can't answer. So obviously John's picked up on it, I've picked up on it, I'm sure there's going to be other people that pick up on it. I think we should all jump all over this and stamp on his face because the guy's telling people lies, all in the name of selling his book. Yeah, sure, he might make some more book sales out of it, but let's demonstrate that these astrophysicist type people, these astronomers, these PhDs in all of their educations to do with heliocentrism are just overtly lying. These guys are lying to you guys, and we're here to say, hey, this is a lie. Look, this is not true. This guy was lying. This guy was debunked in 2016. So shout out to Danny Faulkner.
I had a thought about that
on my channel, Danny.
Go ahead, Ewok.
Well, so I'm not trying to tell you how to run your show, and I know you don't like begging the question. But I was thinking next time you had like a 4 more hours type of situation, to possibly call it, Nathan Oakley begs the question for 4 hours, to show that not only did they not have answers, how do you have a pressure without a container, but then also the proposed answers in their own begging the question doesn't even work. So to attack it from both sides might be helpful to show people that it doesn't work on many different levels, not just the most obvious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, we've tried that.
Right. It's just people, when they hand wave dismiss stuff and then they just reassert their own rhetoric again as if we haven't heard it. It's like, well, they're never going to see it,
That doesn't faze me. If people want to be belligerent to the truth, that's entirely up to them.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I hear you. I know you. It's begging the question, but I don't know that they're ever going to see it.
To be fair, with each of the housekeeping questions, we have gone through the process, starting with Earth curvature in the very early shows, like sub 100 shows. We begged the question for many, many shows till we understood how the trick worked. So in the case of the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, we could just call it the begging the question calculator. It's called an Earth curve calculator. It's pretty blatant that it's begging the question. But we don't. We call it the begging the question because it assumes its outcome. Proof of nothing because begging the question doesn't prove your point if you assume your point. Perspective hijacking because it takes the effects of objects becoming smaller into the distance and removes it by using whole numbers, feet and inches, which do not change with distance. So regardless of the distance put into the calculator, the object you're viewing will remain in its feet and inches value, and that actual size does not change with distance. Now the effect of things getting smaller with distance, which they absolutely do, it's called perspective, has been replaced with something called Earth curve in the Earth curve calculator. So we are acutely aware of how that trick works, not just the fact that it's a begging the question fallacy. Now, fast forward to now, bearing in mind we've covered a lot of different housekeeping questions, it's how they've been formulated, we're now at the very tail end of it, and we're dealing with, albeit the second question in the housekeeping, it's the last one to get addressed, and that's axial rotation. Now, we haven't just said, well, you're begging the question of a spinning ball Earth, and much to Anthony's annoyance, and Chocolate's for that matter, because they've been saying it to me for months on end. Well, yeah, we don't completely get how they're weaseling their arguments around in their side, but we understand that they're begging the question. And point blank, I've refused, where Anthony did the same to me with gravity. He just wanted to figure out how the argument worked within the begging the question fallacy, like we all did with curvature, and so on and so forth. Now we're at the point where if somebody comes to us with a Coriolis claim, we not only understand how it begs the question, we also understand how it twists reference frames, how reference frames work, how they assume their reference frame in their example with a spinning ball Earth, not just the fact they're begging the question, how they weasel it in the examples using Coriolis, how they weasel in the retention of angular velocity when they're supposed to be arguing for deviation. We understand all of these arguments inside out and back to front. So it's not that we just say it's just a begging the question fallacy, Coriolis, you're just assuming Earth spins with every example. We can unpick it from from balls to bones. We can go through that claim and understand it and explain why someone's wrong if they choose not to rumpus the living shit out of every single time we do it. But that's only because we've gone through all of these questions and begged the question ad nausea to the point where either I get sick of it, or Anthony gets sick of it, or normally Quantum Eraser gets absolutely infuriated with it. But you've got to understand, and that's basically what you're saying, you as the audience member or the current panel member need to appreciate how the argument works, so you don't just essentially hand wave it yourself because you don't appreciate when they get into, well, no, it's not begging the question because we see a Coriolis deviation in this bullet, and you don't actually understand what that nonsense means and how to unpick it, or how to use it to your advantage in the case of Neil deGrasse Tyson's football, when you say your claim is that Earth turns under the football, therefore it turns under a drone and an aircraft, and you've got a 1.5 hour flight time from Charlotte to LA, rather than the actual 4.5 hour flight we experience, because Earth doesn't rotate underneath, as claimed by Neil deGrasse Tyson with his football. So we don't just say it's a begging the question fallacy, you're assuming Earth spins. We don't just say you're assuming gravity is real. We don't just say you're assuming Earth curve. We don't just say you're assuming the distance to the sun. We can unpack it all. And yeah, those are all on shows gone by, but we have to reach a point for the consistency of the debate where we say, this is the point where we appreciate the argument and how it works. We will no longer beg the question. And in the case of Coriolis, gravity, axial rotation, distance to the sun, Sodom! No, I'm not begging the question. How dare you just assume R when you give me your distance to that celestial object? No, I won't tolerate your assumption of R. No, I won't tolerate that you just presuppose you have a gravitational disequilibrium force. No, I won't just assume that Earth is spinning for every example that you claim it's spinning in. No, I won't assume that Earth is curving when you've excluded perspective from your calculations. I refuse. It's a bloody outrage that it's been done in the first place. So as for kowtowing to their stupid nonsense, there's absolutely no way on earth I'm going to do it. Sorry.
No, they're just going to say you just don't understand because you're not repeating the rhetoric.
Yeah. You just need to get the definition up. I mean, I said this a few times and it's true. The devil's in the detail, and semantics is not the dirty word that they tell us it is. Semantics is the meaning of the science, the definitions of the science that they tell us that we live in. And if the Earth's turning, and that creates a Coriolis effect, but it requires two frames of reference, one's moving, one that's not, they're at checkmate, because if the Earth is turning and the atmosphere turns with the Earth, then there's not two rotating reference frames. There's only the one, so there's no Coriolis force or Coriolis effect. But if the Earth is turning and the atmosphere is not, then planes have got to get there quicker one way than the other, and they don't do that either. So they're double jeopardy, and they don't realize it. And it took me ages to work it out, but now I'll realize it. And it's like, yeah, guys, just put the definition on. The minute they put the definition on, it's game over.
That was beautiful, Anthony. I could kiss you. that was epic.
Yeah,
I love a really concise summary.
If it could have been demonstrated, it would have been already. They have nothing in reality to point to except hurricanes, and they've already destroyed themselves on that point. So
and when they bring up pendulums, just laugh at them, because pendulums don't prove anything. They might imply something, infer something. Squint your eyes and cross your legs a little bit, and you might feel it. If yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you need to see the Earth turning to prove that the Earth turns, not pendulum.
Yeah, but check the ridiculousness of it, right? They say the pendulum shows a Coriolis effect. Yeah, it's a pendulum swinging back and forth attached to the Earth. But an aircraft that's flying from, I don't know, New York to LA, that's not going to show any deviation. Meanwhile, it's traveling at 500 miles per hour at 35,000 feet.
I'd use that to my advantage. I'd use that to the same advantage I'd use Neil deGrasse Tyson's football. So you basically turn the claim against them. Hold on, my door's going. I'll be back in a second.
Shout out to Jessica from the Sci Strike channel. Sci Strike died recently. I think some of you may be aware. She sent me a message asking me to have a chat with her on a debate kind of platform that she wants to run through her dad's channel. So shout out to Jessica. I believe she's listening in the car on the way to work.
Is the Canadian gravity disappearing guy still here?
Was that something that was actually reported?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
While it's being looked up, any evidence of the molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Only a bit of seismographs.
Heat comes from the ground. That's about all they know.
Hello, everyone. Someone yesterday in the chat was crying that lava proves the core to him. And then I tried to probe a little bit, ask them to explain themselves, but all I got was that I'm not a globe earther, I'm a flat earther, but I can't explain lava, and that's why I believe there is a core. Seriously, that's what I got.
It's not even. That's not even the case in their narrative. That's not even where the lava that comes out of the volcanoes comes from in the heliocentric narrative. So, you didn't even pay attention at school when they explained how they claim volcanic lava is created. It certainly isn't coming from the molten iron core. Oh God.
That would infer that the entire Earth is basically the sun, and there's only a thin layer of crust that we live upon.
What a crock
and it's
of crap.
all the way hot down to the core. That's
someone in
any evidence
someone in
of
chat.
Go on.
Go ahead. No, someone in chat said it's Hudson Bay, I guess, is where the gravity was missing. Again, once you're done with the questions, I'd like to talk about this.
Just shout out this super chat. Says the Earth is obviously and observably flat. The globe has no science, and this is the best $5 I will spend all day. Epstein didn't kill himself, or hashtag Epstein didn't kill himself. Fair enough.
I want to know. I want to know what that Epstein comment is.
I don't
get it. I know it's off topic, but did he not kill himself because he's not actually dead, or did he not kill himself because somebody else killed him? What did he mean by it? Does anyone know?
Don't know. Had to ask my wife who the guy was. Don't watch the news. Don't care. Thank you very much, Abraham Muhammad. Really appreciate your support.
It means that CNN is lying.
We're sure having a hard time getting to the gravity that's been stolen from Canada.
Yeah, we are. Just another shout out to B-Ball for Life. He says, at Nathan Oakley, let's talk about the lighthouse. Perfect globe proof. You can own your words, Nathan Oakley. I don't mind talking about that after housekeeping's done. Thank you very much for the super chat, B-Ball for Life. Really appreciate your support. I'll definitely answer your question if you're paying me to.
I know what you're referring to. He's referring to the Cat Earth video.
We'll get to it. I think there's only distance to the sun to go. Correct me if I'm wrong. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
There is one other.
Don't even know what it is.
Me neither. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
No,
absolutely not.
I did have a claim. One of the ball earthers on my video. If you haven't seen my latest upload, check it out. Not the hangout from last night, but the gas pressure point. He claims that I'm going to find it, but he made a really good claim that I've asked him for citation. Oh, here we go. He says, oh no, it's not it. I'll come back to it in a sec. It's great. Let me come back to it in a sec. I'll find it.
Quote an MIT professor: the gas would fill the available volume.
All right. Can we resurrect the Canadian missing gravity?
Sure. Then
Tough man, how can you resurrect something that didn't exist in the first place? What's going on here?
Missing Canadian what?
I'm running
Gravity.
out of adjectives to try to get there.
I know.
Okay, so this
it's
the
been
gentleman.
posted in the
go on.
chat. Yeah, it's been posted in the chat. It's an article that the article link is in the chat. It's got quite a lot of stuff. For more than 40 years, scientists have tried to figure out what's causing large parts of Canada, particularly the Hudson Bay region, to be missing, quote unquote, gravity. They go on to say that two theories, a whole bunch of conjecture, molten rock, magma, ice age, ice sheet melting, so on and so forth. Yeah.
So my question is this, very simplified. If that region is missing gravity, then are things floating in that area?
Well, it's very small, and they've got the GARCE gravity measurement tool from satellites and so on and so forth to show the variations in gravity.
Wait a minute. Wait, one at a time. So they haven't measured it here on Earth. They're saying they're measuring it from something in the medium that doesn't exist, satellites?
Astrophysicists use data gathered by the GRACE satellite between April 2002 and 2006. Yes, orbiting 500 kilometers above the Earth.
Okay, this is where my good friend Chocolate comes in with Michio Kaku saying, by the seat of their pants.
The satellite, get this, man. The satellites can measure distances down to a micron, so they can detect minor gravitational variations.
Where are those satellites?
Conceptual mind-bending variation? What?
Yeah. That too. Where would those satellites be, just out of interest?
Orbiting 500 kilometers above the Earth and 220 kilometers apart.
Oh, so in space?
That all seems legit.
No, you can't have tin cans in a second law of thermodynamics violation. The claim to be sky vacuum isn't real, so things claim to be orbiting. Well, orbit's being based on a presupposition of an Earth that's got an R value that's never been proven. But nevertheless, that whole pile of horse scrap is just based on this idea that we have a sky vacuum where tin cans can reside, a place we will never travel to because it violates natural law and doesn't exist.
But,
I was
down
thinking
to the
more,
micron. You don't understand.
I don't understand the measurements that they're taking from Narnia. I mean, outer space. Yeah, they're in Narnia. I mean, outer space.
I think we might have missed the point. The main point is that 10th Man said, if they've got a missing chunk of Earth that's missing gravity, wouldn't that, according to their model, wouldn't that mean everything's floating?
Why?
Thank you, Anthony.
No.
Yeah, where's the example of this instead of the explanation for it?
No, the explanation would be a missing, someone said it already, section of bending space-time. Well, it's kind of inconsequential to me. Let's be honest.
I know, but the Mongs on their side think that gravity is what holds us all to the Earth, right? But if there's a missing chunk of gravity, then surely those areas or that land in that part of Canada, everything must be floating if it's missing gravity, right?
Let's not.
It would be a perfect future site for all space missions.
Yeah.
Let's not worry ourselves about the misapprehensions of crayon munchers.
Your eyes can't detect microns.
Oh, by the way,
we heard that before. Didn't we hear that? Am I hearing things? Is there an echo in here? What's going on?
No, if it was floating, then it would only be floating by microns, so you can't tell. You just need the wizard equipment to find out.
Yes, we need to be part of the
would
wizard.
be negligible then.
Yeah.
Their other favorite word.
Gravity not holding us to the surface of the Earth after all, despite all of their attestations to the contrary.
I just want
So
to
by
offer up some
missing
balance.
gravity, you just mean like
Hold
microns
on.
lower
I've
gravity.
got to offer up some balance. Look, we've just promoted NASA and their wizardry. Other religions are available.
Really?
Other religions are available.
To be
But they're all
honest,
alien
actually,
to me.
Tentman, and you did raise something that I missed about how they measure it. So they say that when the Lite satellite flies over the Hudson Bay area, the decrease in gravity causes the satellites behind it, causes that satellite to move slightly away from the Earth and from its sister satellite. This shift in distance is what's used to map the gravitational field. So they're not even measuring anything really on Earth at all. I didn't even realize that.
No, well, hold on. Before we even get to what they claim to measuring, we've already covered this as well. The path that they're travelling on, the trajectory, and the medium are both bunk. So you said orbits? Well, what's an orbit? Based on its distance from the centre of a spherical Earth with an R value that's been presupposed and never proven. Oh, right. Well, that orbit is bollocks. So what, you're saying 5 kilometres out from the centre of the Earth when you add in the radius value and then add on another 5 kilometres. Well, no, that's bollocks. Also, it's claimed to be in a sky vacuum. Also bollocks. So why are we getting to the point where we were worried about what they're measuring? they're not real. They're not there.
That's like the argument of a butterfly flapping its wings in South Africa affects my weather in California when we know it's high and low pressures.
Is there anything more on these bunkum satellites, or can we get to this lighthouse?
I'm done with it.
Anybody else?
Tell them, Nathan, it's not really a lighthouse. Tell them what it really is.
Okay. So I'll give you the skinny. Do you want to give the summary, or do you want me to, Anthony?
I'll give the summary, and then you can explain what your comment meant. So, back in the Mackle Lighthouse, Isle of Man stuff, between debate 76 and about 110, one of the things that we were arguing over was Mackle Lighthouse, 34 miles away, seen from a place that you shouldn't see it on if we're not on a sphere. And the argument was, oh, you're at the wrong height, and you're this, and you're that, and the other. And we were trying to work out what was going on, because it was new. It was the topic at the time. And we'd worked out that you wouldn't be able to see the light from the lighthouse at night time from a certain distance, from a certain height at that distance, right? But me and Nathan went up to...
Just, sorry, make sure you get your disclaimers in.
Which disclaimers is that?
You wouldn't be able to see the... Who the fuck's telling you what you can and can't see other than your eyeballs, exactly? Who's this person?
Well, yeah.
Is it a person telling you can't see this thing? Sorry.
It's a model. It's a model.
The model says we can and can't see. Okay, that was the disclaimer. Sorry, go ahead.
So the issue was Miles Delia Davis had challenged me to get the lighthouse observed from a certain height. Now, he didn't say do it at daytime or at nighttime. He just said go and see it from that lower elevation, and then that would be something worthy of talking about. And obviously, since then, he's still not changed his position, despite being demonstrated to be wrong, because you can see the lighthouse from a certain elevation. To the extent that I went on to Wikipedia to change it, to tell people that you could see the lighthouse from the beach at St. Bees, and somebody on their side kept changing it back. And in the end, I got bored. But Wikipedia is supposed to be factual, and it's factual that you can see the lighthouse from a certain distance. However, there was a discussion between Nathan and I, because when we could see this lighthouse flashing, there was an argument for what were we actually looking at, because we can see the light flashing. It's flash, 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 3 flashes in a 10-second period, and we knew that it was the lighthouse in question. But the argument was, are we looking at the filament of the bulb, or are we looking at the projected light in the style of Batman, Gotham City style, where it projects into the night sky? Now, for me, I'm looking right down the tube of the gun. I'm looking at the lighthouse and I'm seeing the bulb. But Nathan's position was, hang on a minute, if you say this is going to cause them to say that. So go on, Nathan. Do you want to explain what you meant by what was said and why it was dodgy on their side, not on our side?
Well, you've summarised it perfectly, but my shorthand comment to you, perfect globe proof, is shorthand for they will claim this is a globe proof, as opposed to me saying it's a globe proof, because it's me in a private conversation. Anthony's got his screen shared in the bottom left-hand corner. So, in other words, where Anthony's now on screen, if he was screen sharing, he'd have his image up. But for the audience, like now, I've got it on my screen, so you can see my rolling images from Ranty Flat Earth. Shout out to Ranty Flat Earth, subscribe today. So, as a result, Cat Earth has got Anthony's screen share, and he's got a Skype conversation with me going back and forth during the debate. And I'm saying, no, don't tell them about the night time where we saw the light flashing. They'll just claim it's a perfect globe proof. That's how it gets phrased. I can't remember the exact perfect wording in that message. But what I'm conveying to Anthony is there's no point talking about this flashing bulb, because all we'll debate about is whether or not we're seeing the projected light out at the distance claimed on Wikipedia, which was something like 8 or 10 or 12, it doesn't really matter, miles, but a considerably shorter distance than we were saying we could see it from. So my point to Anthony, which had been long since discussed while we were looking at it, literally while it was in front of us, is how does the Fresnel lens work? How does the projection of the light work? That's what we were researching while I'm telling Anthony, don't discuss it, they'll just claim it's a globe proof. But when I say it paraphrasing to Anthony, who's on my side of the argument, they'll just say globe proof. There's no point putting it that way when I can just say, oh, that'll be globe proof then. It doesn't mean I'm saying it's globe proof. It just means that's what I'm saying will come next in the debate. When discussing a light that never got released, 3 pixels in a camera with a load of black around it, You know, I was like, this is weak. You can't see anything except the light. Now I know full well that I can see it. I've got my wife standing next to me. I think Spurs Gemo was there. And Anthony is missus. The dogs are looking at it. Everyone's looking at the light. We all know we can see it. But what have we got to prove it? We've got 3 pixels in a camera. And yeah, wonderful though it was, when you play it back, you go, this is very underwhelming now, isn't it? Are we going to get into arguing about Fresnel lenses? I just thought it wasn't worth the effort.
Now, what that really means is that what we can demonstrate is the light flashing at a certain elevation way behind the curve of the Earth, and it's impossible. But what Nathan's saying is that if we make the claim that we can now see this lighthouse at this height, at this distance, they will dishonestly claim it as the Batman figure, the Batman logo being cast into the sky. And that's not what we're looking at. But Nathan's saying, if you present this, they will steal it and claim it as their own. And that's why he's pointing out the dishonesty of the ballers. He's not saying that we're being dishonest. He's saying that they will steal it because they're dishonest. And I agree with him. So it was never released officially publicly. It was never released unofficially privately. It never got published because even though we can see the lighthouse way behind the curve of the Earth at night time, the ballers are that dishonest that they'll claim it. And basically, we can't prove that it's not that. They can't prove that it is, but they'll claim it anyway. And they'll be believed just because 10 of them all say, yeah, that's the Batman logo. So that's what the reference was about. We were demonstrating how dishonest the ballers are, not ourselves. Sorry, BB Ball. That's the explanation.
But on the other hand, B-Ball for life, if you want to take it as read that I've got a globe proof, or I'm holding some cards that I'm not showing to my audience that prove it's a globe, you're welcome to believe that. You know, seek out the references for my claim you think I've made in regards to a perfect globe proof, and see if it is. I absolutely assure you that while we were discussing that subject, we were into begging the question of a proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. Now, we hadn't appreciated that by then, but what are you going to do? Go back and process this light that has never been published through that calculator? What, as a perfect globe proof? No, we just take a giant dump on it immediately and point out that you're begging the question, utilising an R value, you're trying to prove with the calculation. That's the assuming your outcome part of it. The numbers that you put through are for the distances that lighthouse is at, and the actual height of the lighthouse, I guarantee, will be processed in feet and inches, actual size, despite the fact that it's got an angular size. It's perspective inclusive when we took the picture, but yeah, what, you're going to run these numbers of this perfect quote globe proof through a begging the question proof of nothing calculator to prove it's a globe? Well, be my guest, you stupid moron, B-Ball for life, if that's what you want to take as being a globe proof. Now, we on the other hand appreciate this nonsense, but given that Cat Earth's published it and people desperately want to prove me wrong with the most tenuous scraps they can find, you feel free to munch down that little scrap you've found. Num num num. Good for you.
Notwithstanding,
so that's the nonsense they've been holding on to this whole time. That little that's what they got.
Let's not forget that we've addressed his point, even though we did it on Super Chat. We've addressed his point for why we didn't go public with the information, basically because the ballers are dishonest and they'll steal it, and we can't prove that it's not, and they can't prove that it is, but they'll steal it anyway. But when we keep asking for the proof of gas pressure without a container, we get tumbleweed. So I was about, in return, BB Ball, you go and demonstrate to us how we can have, in a vacuum chamber, a gas pressure that conforms to the exterior of a surface, like in a ball in the middle. Just show us how there's gas pressure in that container in the way that you can demonstrate, because we have a gravitational field, and we can use that gravitational field apparently to demonstrate that you can have gas pressure, and we all know you can't do it. It'll fill the available volume. That's what it says. That's the science. But we've addressed your claim, and we've demonstrated and explained in depth why it was that what you lot perceived was Nathan being dishonest was actually stopping you lot being dishonest, because you'll claim something to which you weren't entitled. What do you know? That's exactly what you do, and you always do it because you're all dishonest, all of you. So I was about giving us the demonstration for gas pressure in a container like we've been asking for. Go.
Doesn't Ranty's other images that show further objects being seen that shouldn't be seen take care of this issue?
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, kind of.
Well, they do, but they just ignore it. I mean, you can't see that clock tower on a ball because the clock tower's behind the curve. There's a wall of water in the way. But they say, well, you're not looking at the clock tower. You're looking behind the curve, and there's a loomed up clock tower. but they can't prove that claim. They just say, well, we need an explanation, and we'll just come up with something logical and reasonable, and then we'll just get citations and apply Snell's law to it, and then it sounds plausible. And if you've kept up with the argument, it makes logical sense. But in real world, you can't demonstrate that light bends in the atmosphere when it deviates from straight in all directions along the pathway of that light ray. That's what actually happens.
So they're going to say looming, whether it's the lighthouse or the clock tower. So
or the oil rig, or the boat, or an entire cityscape. So Travis got in touch and said, do you mind just saying the word oil rig and then just saying the word lighthouse? I'm like, why? He's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit in a soundbite of you saying that over the top of the word clock, so I get your words that you said about the clock, but about an oil rig. In other words, he's in a discussion with presumably a globe head or a whole number of them in regards to an oil rig that he's seen at a distance that, according to their reification of a globe model, shouldn't be there. I will read out your super chats, by the way. I have seen them going by. So yeah, beds to bear, is it? How can you measure 14.7 psi at sea level? Barometer. I'll get to David Rakia Gafford in a moment before I lose track of what I've already lost track. What the hell was I babbling about? Anybody? He was paying attention. Probably nobody.
I don't know what you were saying.
No, nobody was paying attention. Just waiting for you.
Oil rig.
Oil rig, right. So,
tower.
yes, that's where I was. So Travis gets in touch and says he wants me to just say those two words. So instead, I was just like, well, I can just rattle it off on a recording and send you that. So I sent him a recording of me saying it's not an oil rig. It's a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of an oil rig from behind the reified edge of an earth curve based on an R value and a begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator to turn an oil rig that seems to be there into an oil rig which isn't actually there. It's a hologram. And then the exact same thing for lighthouse. You know, it's not a lighthouse, it's a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a lighthouse from behind the reified edge of an earth curve based on an R value and a begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator to turn a lighthouse from a lighthouse that we see into a lighthouse which isn't really there. So I just recorded them and sent them to him because there's lots of people out there that have exactly the same thing. As soon as you see something that according to their reified model shouldn't be there, they just say it's a hologram. It's not the Chicago skyline, it's a mirage. In other words, this doesn't conform with our model, therefore we'll turn it into something that isn't really there. It's been projected up from behind an earth curve that should be blocking your view, but just isn't on this day because you've got a mirage. No, it's a skyline, and we're the only ones that can say that. We don't need to justify any explanation or measurement when you look at a cityscape. You just go, there's the Chicago skyline. Now, you can only make that statement if you're a flat earther, because there's no need to justify an earth curve that isn't there and a cityscape that's being loomed up from a drop that hasn't occurred, because you're just looking at something that's in the distance. It's small. Not that that'll be included in their claim that it's a hologram. You know, they'll be absolutely ignoring any effects of perspective. So shout out to David Rakia Gafford, who says, God is creator. Creation proves creator. Noah. The great I am. Simple. Rakia life. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. And JQ, what's the history behind calling hyena holographic projection? So Tim Osman came on with a claim of sinking, whatever he's claiming, it's stuff being behind Earth curve. And he's got this drone footage and P900 footage. And in the footage, he's got stuff in the foreground, hyenas, that shouldn't be there, that should be behind the curve. So they become slightly looming non-standard refraction hyenas, right? They're not supposed to be there. So that's why hyena is dropped in there, because off the back of that nonsense, you know, looming hyenas, we ended up with a couple of different people who ended up turning their screen names from whatever they were called to slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena, for instance, and, you know, super looming penguin and all sorts of other stuff, you know, okay, just became nonsense. Go on.
All right. Yeah. Chicken and the egg, now I know.
So yeah, hyena's just been dropped in there as a sort of homage to the whole conversation in terms of realising what the magic trick actually does. The magic trick turns things that you and I just see, clock tower, oil rig, Chicago skyline, boat, lighthouse, into a holographic image of something that shouldn't be there according to a reified earth curve model that just happens to not be working on that day because it's clear. And the earth is obviously and observably flat. It's undeniable when you see something like the Chicago skyline, the lighthouse, the oil rig, whatever it is that according to them shouldn't be there. Well, yeah, it is there. You just have to believe the evidence of your own eyes.
I remember when we were arguing over that Isle of Man stuff, and we were trying to work out what was going on with that curve calculator, because we knew it was obviously wrong. It weren't matching what we were looking at, and it was not matching to the extent that we genuinely didn't know why it didn't match. We knew that obviously we know it's not a sphere, but they're on curve calculators miles out, and we're trying to work out, well, what are we actually looking at? And that was the $1 million question: how far were we seeing? And we didn't know, because it was like bit blurred towards the edges of the picture, and it was a bit weird. But the more we got into the discussion and the more we realized, there was like a eureka moment for me and Nathan, where we were kind of like, we realized that this perspective thing, these things are not 300 feet or 500 feet or 1,000 feet at that distance. They're a few pixels. And the more we realized, and the more we got into it, and we started getting proper down and dirty in the trenches of the mire, known as arguing over curvature and horizon stuff, we realized that this is nonsense, but we just couldn't put our fingers on what it actually was. And then one day, Mick West was in chat, and we started. He ended up coming on the show, didn't he, Nathan? And basically admitting that he just assumes that R is there because he assumes that we're on a sphere. And obviously, in the real world, we're looking at this stuff and we're going, there is no curvature here. But somehow they're arguing that there is curvature, and we're looking at it and we're like, there's no curvature here. This is flat. This is flat. It is flat where I live. It might not be flat everywhere, but it's definitely flat where I live. And that Isle of Man observation basically allowed us to work out how they were distorting it. And if you look at the curve calculator now, I don't even recognize it. Have you seen it recently, guys? It's just so complicated. It's like, right, so now they've made it that complicated that you're never going to find out whether or not she's behind the curve or not.
Well, I think that was the winning moment, right? When we got the guy who created this calculator that they're all using to come on here and completely admit that the R value that he's got in there is based on an assumption of a model. Yeah. That's it. Simple. I mean, what do you need after that? The whole point is we're trying to find out what was measured, not assumptions. So, yeah, Mick West, thanks for that.
Yeah, he's now got that line in there. It says, note, not accurate for observations over water very close to the horizon unless temperature and vertical temperature gradients are accurate. In other words, his curve calculator doesn't do anything anymore. It's not accurate.
And that's cute, because all the people that use it, they all want to do these observations over water, right? Oh, all of a sudden, it's no good for over water. That's cute.
Thank you guys for doing that heavy lifting. It's fantastic, and it's changed.
It was horrible, though.
Pleasure.
It was horrible, though, because back then all the ballers were coming in on force because they thought that like they could get us on this because we were making claims. Because you've got to poke the bear, right? You've got to get the interest raised, right? You've got to make some assertions. And that's what I told Ranty. I said, Ranty, look, they're not going to do anything unless you start making claims. And it doesn't really matter like how forceful you say, how persuasive this is. You've got to say something bold like, this is not possible on a sphere or whatever. And then they start paying attention. So you've got to make some claims, which we shouldn't really do. But that allowed us to have the argument back and forth. And it's kind of developed the argument to the point where now we just look at the curve calculator and laugh at it. But we still beg the question. I like to beg the question with them and discuss it, but Nathan hates it.
But that's why they won't come in. So that's how this conversation started. Oh, well, why don't we get any address? Well, because we've already gone through it. They're keen to argue with you when they know they can get you to beg the question. Like you say, they'll only argue when they've assumed their outcome. In other words, all explanations within that argument end with the outcome because it was assumed in the first instance. Now, because we say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to start with you asserting your premise and then going from there, because it doesn't matter whether we win, lose, or draw in that argument. That's the point of the calculator. That's why they were so keen back then, because back then we didn't realise that just by arguing using the calculator, you're begging the question with them. And it doesn't matter what result you get, because they've already assumed the outcome. So if it doesn't match the calculator, they turn stuff into holograms, because then it works in the calculator. They introduce terrestrial refraction. Well, because it doesn't matter what you do in that calculation, every result's a globe result. So they're more than keen to argue with you when they know you're going to beg the question with them. As soon as you say, no, we don't want to play that game anymore, we're not going to let you just automatically assume your religious belief in this argument and then start making claims based on that assumption. Well, they don't want to argue anymore because they know that they can only assume their outcome. That's the only way they prove their religion. So are they going to argue when they know they can't do that? Well, no, because the arguments end really quickly and get cut out as toe tags every single time they open their mouths. So it's vow of silence, because they've got no defence. The only thing they can do is button it, because they don't have any proof for their heliocentric religion. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. You better damn well sit your asses down and keep them there, globeheads, because you've got nothing.
And because of that, they're crying, I need a fair platform. I need a fair platform. I'll debate you on somewhere else. Give me a fair platform. I can't win when you undress me. My argument is fallacious.
Yeah, they don't like it if we don't argue within their model, because we don't need to argue within their model because they can't prove that their model's true in the first place. So it's all begging the question ultimately. But it's just nonsense. The whole thing, that curve calculator, is nonsense. But the minute you start talking about it, it's still... Do you remember how much refraction Rumpus would have to add? It was not just lumen, it was super lumen, and then it was super mega lumen, and basically it would add more refraction onto it because it needed it. Not because it was really causing it, it's because it's flat. But Rumpus would just add more on. So no matter how much she said it was like, well, that's nowhere near the curve calculator, you just slide the refraction slider a little bit further up and go, yeah, it's refraction. And we're like, me and Nathan are shaking our heads and face planting, but the ballers are all going, yeah, that's refraction. It's like light doesn't follow a curved path. It deviates from straight in all directions.
But refraction in their model is 7/6R as standard, to be increased at will to make something work with their model. How much it's a hologram? Oh, well, we can just change that on a sliding scale depending on what we see. So long as we're calculating it based on an R value in this model, based on this begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, we can just increase the amount of 7/6R to a greater degree of terrestrial refraction. Terrestrial refraction also assuming the R value. So they're not just assuming Earth's a sphere in this example, regardless of outcome, it's always going to be a sphere outcome. They're also going to assume the same thing within the terrestrial refraction that they're not measuring a bloody thing for. It's on a sliding scale to make holograms of things that you see. We are Flat Earth and we say, there's a clock, there's an oil rig, there's a boat, there's the Chicago skyline. Globehead fundamentalist religious zealots assert that they are slightly looming, super looming, holographic projections from behind a reified model edge. We call that model edge the horizon, a not actual place where the sky appears to meet the ground. They call it the leading edge of their model, because they have used a fallacy, the fallacy of reification. They reify their model and the edge thereof into an arbitrary position where the sky appears, not actual location, appears to meet the ground. The sky doesn't meet the ground. It's not an actual location. It's definitely not the edge of a heliocentric sphere model. That's a reification fallacy. That's all they've got. Assume the Earth is a sphere, R value, and then assume that terrestrial refraction bends light around that sphere to turn things into holograms. It's pathetic.
They also have fanatic declarations, because this the Rumpus character is on Discord chat right now, and what he typed was, every result is a globe result because the Earth is a globe.
Nice. Not too much begging the question, hey there, Rumpus.
So it's essentially defined begging the question in his chat comment. It's a globe to begin with. In other words, you must beg the question. This was all assessed between show 75 and show 150. The demand from them is that we must beg the question. We must automatically assume it's a globe because Earth's a globe. No, that's circular reasoning. That's a logical fallacy. That's all we get.
You beat me to it.
Nothing could be said better than it's been said. That's it.
You guys should see some of the comments that I've had on that gas pressure video I released yesterday. Some of them are just, I mean, even in the video, it expressly stated that even if you want to think of gravity as a force, it's not really a force. George Musa, he also said, you don't really have to work at the really is level. Yet everybody in chat saying gravity, gravity. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys have obviously not watched the video. And if you have watched the video, you're just parroting it back anyway. It's embarrassing how gravity is still the standard answer. We need to just laugh at them when they say gravity. Don't even ask them which gravity, just laugh. Treat them.
Nah, man, they have to protest their priest when the priests are saying things that don't match their narrative. So when George Musa says
Didn't
gravity
they,
is not a force, but you can think of it like one. No, George Musa, that's not what he really meant. Yeah, he meant this and that. Same thing with Smoke the Grass Tyson. They got to throw him under the bus because he says 128,000 feet. You can't see curvature yet. These fools are in here arguing. You can see a boat disappear behind a curve at 3 miles. Right? So now they got to throw him under the bus too. So yeah, that's what's going on. These people, when the very people that they get their narrative from, they've got to change it because it doesn't match the story that they're trying to feed us. So it's just funny.
Isn't it interesting, Chocolate, that once the 8 housekeeping questions got narrowed down and fine-tuned, they will never change, ever. But the heliocentrics keep changing their statements all the time, as you just said.
Yep.
You mean like the moon is in Earth's atmosphere?
Yeah,
yep.
that one.
You just took it from you just stole the words from me.
Doesn't that debunk gravity as a container if hydrogen got all the way to the moon?
Well, not only that, but why go up there in the rocket when you can just go there on an airplane?
Apparently, if there's hydrogen, but they'll say it's dispersed, very thin, but it still trickles all the way there. Well, that's if gravity's the container, how are we leaking gases all the way to the moon?
Right, gravity is not a container. Right, let's just address that for Jimmy. No, gravity is not a container. Gravity is not a force. It's the bending of a conceptual medium. So let's just discount that straight away. In regards to where they change the Tor values to between us and the moon is irrelevant. It's an open system. Don't have to argue about where they push the Tor values to. It makes absolutely no difference because it's classed as an open system. And the volume, that volume that the gas wants to occupy, for how you measure its pressure, well, the volume in that instance would be all of space. Now, they might tell you the Tor values are X, Y, and Z at this particular location. They can also tell you that gas is contained at roughly the Kármán line. They can make up anything they like about a region that doesn't exist. Like, I can write in anything about the narrative of Narnia. It's just words. But reality has laws of nature applicable. And in an open system with a vacuum, your gas is going to fill that available volume. And the available volume without containment would be all of space. Ergo, the gas we're breathing, debunking this notion of a sky vacuum, that gas we're breathing would fill the space. The fact we have gas pressure here debunks the notion of a sky vacuum. At this stage, any claim that comes from the fake region that is claimed to be a vacuum, defying natural law, is deemed bunk immediately. No need to argue about their claim of what the Tor values are. Open systems can't exist with gas pressure next to vacuums. Doesn't matter how far they push the Tor values out, it makes no difference. Shout out to Super Looming Hyena for the super chat. He says, thanks for the advert. I'm the original. I'm sure you are, Super Looming Hyena. Really appreciate the support.
Hey Nathan, just as a caveat,
I could ask.
their own model that I have on the screen that I recorded over a 38-minute period showed that eventually the gas pressure fills the available volume. I just let this run. It has gravity built into it. It has all the necessary factors into it. But as you can see, as I start to scroll, the gas
Some of them look like they're bouncing off a container and heading back towards the ball.
Oh no, but I zoom out. But look, I zoom out. So you can see. So they're expanding, and as you keep going, and 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 keep going. Uh-oh, what happened? What happened? Where's all this differential pressure, this pressure gradient? Where'd it go? This is their own model, by the way. I didn't set anything. This pops up just like it is. I didn't adjust anything. All I did was zoomed in and zoomed out. And this is the final result after 38 minutes.
That's a globe-tard answer would be that's a celestial refraction. It's looming. It's still there.
Yeah, we're talking about a different subject now, 10th man, but I appreciate the humour. Shout out to Retro Bill, who says, any dead fish can float downstream, but it takes a live one to swim upstream. Kudos to Nathan, Chocolate, Anthony, Arwin, 10th man, and Paul. Really appreciate your support, Retro Bill. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Also, shout out to Abraham Mohammed, whose super chat I can't quite read yet. I'll see if I can dig it out. Thank you very much indeed, Abraham Mohammed. I can't quite read it yet. For some reason, it doesn't let me read the last super chat.
If I could ask,
yeah.
Someone mentioned earlier hydrogen. What was the verb? Trickling down. I've never heard that one before.
Trickling out toward the moon, like the display just showed.
Yeah, gas doesn't trickle. It rapidly expands in all directions to fill the available volume available to it.
Now, poor choice of words on my part.
Shout out to 300 people watching. Welcome.
If there were tons and tons of hydrogen leaking into space the way they say, bearing in mind that water is H2O, right? That's hydrogen and oxygen, isn't it? 2 parts oxygen, 1 part hydrogen. Then doesn't it stand to reason that the oceans will be losing volume? Like not rising as global warming predicts, but it would be losing volume because the hydrogen part would be getting lost to space, right?
Well, and along those same lines, I just came up in a Discord the other day with a Glober. They actually admitted we're losing 80 tons of gas to outer space every year, and so let's think about that for a second. The gas is produced at ground level, but it's actually more or less exchanged by animals and plants. So there's actually no like new oxygen being produced. It's to be in exchange with carbon monoxide. So if you're losing particles of gas over time, eventually you're going to lose the particles that you're exchanging with other life forms. So eventually there would be no gas at all unless there's something introducing more carbon dioxide, more oxygen into the system to maintain it. You understand what I'm saying about that?
The gas would fill the space. And with that, I'll say if you are watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, unfortunately this is where we bid you farewell. But if you're watching this on Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of today's Discord and G Plus panel for making this live show possible. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Go. That was fun.
Yes. Excellent show. You'd had several narrations or summaries. Anthony had a few. You had several. That was wonderful.
Oh, and I do have a small channel now because I have produced some content, which you just saw, by the way.
Oh, wow. Cool. Let's just bring it back up on the screen so I can see it. Hello, Quantum Racer. So it's called Paul Hall, obviously. Subscribe today. There is, the audience can see when I'm watching this with the audience. Paul, I'll make sure to put a share link to the Nathan Oakley audience. Hello in the Nathan Oakley audience.
I don't have much content, but I have a little.
Cool. Love it.
What?
Content. I'm always up for promoting people when they actually go to the effort of producing stuff.
Speaker to vibrate a petri dish containing silicon oil.
Oh,
now,
who's playing video?
Make a little.
Who's doing that? Stop playing a video, whoever is. Someone's playing a petri dish video. Can you turn it off, please?
Stop me.
It's John. It's John. John.
John, can you turn off your video or mute yourself in the Discord? Hello.
Sorry about that. Turn off your porn, John.
And it's not porn, it's just I don't want to get copyright strikes for playing something that isn't mine. Well, good to have you, John.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Did you see that I trimmed out and edited a more concise call out of Dr. Faulkner?
I did not.
I've trimmed down the backstory where you explain how you and Hay kind of got introduced, the forum that you were on where you were provided with his link back in 2016, and then you explaining that upon hearing him on, I can't remember the name of the science broadcast, you'll name, if you can name the host.
Bob Enyart Live.
Bob Enyart Live. There you go. Obviously, you raised an eyebrow given that you'd had an email exchange, so all of that information was contained along with the pre-recorded bit that you gave me to play out, with you playing out that radio broadcast and then you explaining exactly that. So it's kind of, you explain the preamble, the pre-story, then the story, then obviously he's being called out for asserting things that kind of contradict or definitely contradict the facts of the matter, shall we say. So that was trimmed out and broadcast about 2 or 3 hours ago.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll check it out after we're done here.
I put comments in there and spam the live feed when it went out to say, please share this far and wide, so hopefully the good doctor gets to see the situation. Let's hope that's the case. You're watching this on Nathan Oakley, check it out. Go to the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. Watch the video that's called Dr. Faulkner Gets Called Out by QE, or however I've titled it, and share it. Share it somewhere. Doesn't matter where, just share it.
Share it with Danny.
Well, just sharing it generally means that, you know, people are more likely, he'll come across it if it's being shared. If it just stays on my channel, then probably not. But if people share it, just however they share it, doesn't matter. Just being shared means there's more likelihood of him seeing it.
Thank you, sir.
Nathan, you had mentioned just prior to concluding the show, open systems can't exist next to gas pressure, right? And how many items on Earth show that? Like a bottle of Coke with a cap on it.
I mean, how many items on Earth violate the second law of thermodynamics? Is that your question?
Yeah. You know, obviously here on Earth, there's so many things you go by that are in closed containers for a reason. If they weren't, by the time you got it home, they'll be spilling all over the place.
Well, nothing. There is no demonstrations. And if there was, then we wouldn't have that law. It wouldn't be a law if you could violate it. You can't. That's why it's a law.
Yes.
It's just nobody realizes that it applies to Earth.
Well, the same people who are trying to debunk that law are proving that law when they buy things in closed containers, because they know what would happen if it was an open container. By the time they get it home, it'll be all over their back seat.
Just one question: when they say that the law does not apply to the Earth, my first question would be, where did you discover the law? Go.
Yeah. If it wasn't applying to Earth, where did you discover it? Yeah.
Well, no, you phrase it back to them slightly differently, which is to say, are you suggesting that natural law does not apply to nature? And their answer can only be yes, yes. I'm implying the nature of our Earth has the second law of thermodynamics not applicable, because that's what they're saying. No, it's your fundy belief in a sky vacuum that's not real. The second law is definitely real. It holds true always. Defying your sky vacuum that you believe in, where wizards go when they're on sets with cameras. Or in swimming pools.
Paul has a good point. I like it.
You have to remind me.
Well, if the second law doesn't apply to Earth, then how did you ever contrive the second law?
No, I still don't follow. How did you
to be able to contrive the second law of thermodynamics, you'd have to experience it.
Right. In other words, the description of nature and summary with a law would require you experiencing that nature to have the law in the first instance. So,
yes.
So ergo, your defiance of the law requires you to first acknowledge that it's a law of nature. Is that the point?
Yes.
Blingy blongs. I keep pausing, expecting someone to say something from Discord.
Good afternoon, Nathan. How you doing?
Very well. Who's that? And I'll turn you up. Darren. Right, you're as loud as you can be. Good to have you, Darren.
That was a really good show. I really enjoyed that.
My favourite part was where Rumpus said from the chat, "We must beg the question." Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. Did you catch that, QE?
No, I don't pay any attention to Rumpus anymore. I should have did that about in 2016 after I slammed them. But yeah, we have to put up with what we have to put up with.
Right. We just pointed out that the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator has been dissected beyond the begging the question section. And now we just insist that they won't beg the question on account of the fact that that's fallacious reasoning, and the whole point of them wanting to argue is because we will allow them, or did, beg the question, i.e. assume the outcome in every example they use to demonstrate their religious belief in a sphere Earth. Well, upon making that declaration, from the chat, Rumpus says, well, it is a sphere Earth. Therefore, it's perfectly reasonable to use the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. It's like, way to beg the question, Rumpus. Epic.
My word, people.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, that's why it's
on.
That's why it's called a fallacy. They go to an untrue position to keep the argument going because they've lost 10 minutes ago. So they have to bring up a begging the question fallacy of some sort to continue their fairy tale position. If you were going to be just objective and truthful and say, no begging the question, just show us claim and support, they would have lost a long time ago.
They make a declaration and then they go forward to try to prove their declaration is God's truth kind of thing. It's just, I made a declaration, therefore that's true, and then I'll continue onward.
Yeah.
The way he typed it, the Rumpus was, every result is a globe result because the Earth is a globe. He typed that 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, circular reasoning 101.
Yeah, so when they're pinned against the wall and they lose on a position, they make up something. Ah, yeah, but you didn't understand that the Earth's atmosphere extends to the moon now. What?
He also champions the second law doesn't apply to the Earth. So, Paul, you can go and ask your question to him.
If the second law does not apply to the Earth, where did you discover the law to begin with?
Imagination.
They must have went to the moon first, then discovered the law and come back. So
I think
that's
Paul, it's more of
Hold
a
on.
guide.
There's a couple of people flashing their lights. Might want to, they're rumbling away. Bling bong, bling bong. Yeah, you're paid.
Who's talking in the background?
Inglorious Big. Have you got something to add? Just opening your mic so we can hear your background. Clearly. Highlander? People sat with their mics open, not saying anything. Me? Have I got an issue in my end? No? No issue in my end. Refresh Discord. No, exactly the same. Why do I bother?
Yeah, he's extremely quiet. We can't work out a word he's saying.
I'm quiet.
No, the
Oh, the
Mr.
other dude.
Big.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Highlander.
Nathan, were you calling me before?
No.
Oh. Hey, Highlander, have you got an answer for my question yet?
I was just wanting to know who said that it doesn't apply to the Earth.
So that'd be a no. Then, right?
That would be Rumpus. That would be Unorthodox. That would be all the people on your side. So yeah, there you go.
We won't use
It's
the
just I've never heard anybody saying that. That's all.
It's fair enough. This is one of those times that this won't get levelled at you because it's definitely not an assertion of your religion. It's a contradiction within the religion, and the antithesis of reality gets asserted by your side. But unless you actually personally verbalised it, I would definitely... Go on.
The secular thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth.
Well, we have you on record saying that. It's just...
Where have you got me on record? Where have you got that? And apply to the Earth? I'll never say anything. The secular thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth. The secular thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth.
Tootsie Roll Dick moves on.
Cool. Very cool. So yeah, that's a
We
contradiction.
have pretended clown lumberjacks that have slimed their way into the real.
So yeah, Highlander, what I was going to say in conclusion is that's not something we'll level at you because it's an incorrect assertion from your side, but it wouldn't be something that's true of the entire
I'm
religion.
not going to apologize for exposing snakes.
Who's playing audio clips?
Who's playing that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this is why I don't like having bucket loads of people in the Discord room.
Right.
You sure it wasn't John trolling?
No, I'm not playing that. I got out of the program once I played Rumpus's little spill.
So you didn't play any of that then, John?
Hold on.
I
You've still got Highlander on the hook. So my point was going to be, yeah, you're not going to get us saying that it's part of your religion that second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to nature. It absolutely does. Even if you're a heliocentrist, it's just a contradiction within the religion. But you're not asserting that it doesn't apply, are you, Highlander?
No.
Right, because you're a reasonable man.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, in this regard.
Ask the reasonable man if he wouldn't mind answering how do we have gas pressure without a container? We're still waiting for him to address that.
Flat earther. Well, have you ever served in an infantry?
Who's doing that? Who's doing that?
It's not me. Must be somebody in Discord.
Well, they lose the argument right away when they go against the first and second law of thermodynamics because they're not called laws of nature for no reason, right?
So, Darren, can you just say hello? Okay, I don't think it's you. Everyone that was off mute, I put on server mute, so whoever it was.
It's not me, because I'm on push to talk.
Fair enough. Hey, Fuzzy Ewok, can you just say a quick hello? I'm not going to chase down this problem.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't think it was you either. So, when there's a moderator in, if I've popped you on server mute, you were just unlucky enough to be off mute when that was happening. So I think I've resolved that problem now. We'll see. So let a mod know in the Discord server if you remain on server mute, because you will, until someone takes you off, if you were unlucky enough to be off mute when that was happening. Anyway, can the conversation continue about things that aren't related to random QE sound bites being played out?
Yeah, I was talking about why the first and second law of thermodynamics are called law, because they're laws in nature. There's no fighting it.
The thing about a soundbite is it's got to be relevant to the point you're making for it to have any sort of gravitas. But it's never going to have any gravitas if it's just spewed out in random order, clipped at the end because you haven't pressed your push to talk long enough. Weak. I don't get it. Other than causing disruption, which is just childish. Anyway, my moan's over.
It's the kind of thing that Kosho would do. So, Highlander, any explanation for how you can have gas pressure without a container? No.
Who's asking that question?
The same guy that's been asking you for the last 2 days, waiting for you to answer, and all you do is deflect, divert, deny.
Is that you, Sleeping Warrior?
Aye, Sleeping Warrior, sir. How do you have gas pressure without a container, Highlander?
I'll be right back. I'm just going to go get that tumbleweed.
Yeah.
What's the matter, Highlander? Your butt hurt and you're playing the I'm not talking to Sleeping Warrior because he spanked my ass card.
Really? That coming from a guy that doesn't know what 5 divided by 0 is. That gave me a really good fucking laugh.
So why did you take all this time to respond to him?
Everyone else, shut up.
That's lovely, but I was about not deflecting and answering the question that I've asked you for the last 3 days. How do you have gas pressure without a container, please?
If somebody else asks a question, then I'm quite happy to talk about it. But
How do you have gas pressure without a container, Highlander?
Well, if the pressure is equal, do you need the container?
How do you have that pressure in the first place?
Let's have the famous analogy that you guys like to use. Let's say we have a car tire, right? And in that car tire, the tire pressure is 14.7 psi. And we poke a hole in that tire. What happens? Exactly, nothing happens.
The air escapes out of the tire.
Pressure on either side is exactly the same.
Hold on, he was just coming off mute. He was just giving a fair crack that you were definitely finished. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Yeah, the air comes out of the tire.
The air comes out of the tire, even although the air pressure on either side is exactly the same.
Go ahead and stop it.
Go ahead and do it.
Hold on,
Oh
QE.
my God.
Hold on.
Go ahead and
show it. Hold on. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Is the pressure inside the tire and outside the same?
Yeah, if I have a tire, right, and the inside of that tire, the tire pressure is 14.7, and you poke a hole in that tire, what happens to the air?
He already told you.
Hold on. Let's just get some clarity, because this is obviously, there's some confusion. How do you know the tyre pressure's at 14.7? How have you measured that? Highlander.
Because when we put the air
Engage
in the
pressure
tire,
and output.
the air gauge
Hold on.
tells us
Hold on.
what the pressure is.
How did you measure the pressure in the tyre?
From the air gauge. You know, like when you take your car to the garage. And
So
it's
let me
got
get it
the
straight.
little
Hold
gauge
on.
to tell you.
Okay, so with a tyre pressure, you've put a tyre pressure gauge onto the tyre, and the gauge reads 14.7, correct?
Yep.
No worries. Go ahead, Chocolate.
Okay, so you're saying that you puncture a hole in the tire and the air comes out. So what is your point?
No, I never said the air comes out. I was asking you what happens when you poke a hole in that tire.
Okay, he's already said the air comes out. So what, do you disagree? You need to now counter that.
Well, why would the air come out if the air pressure on either side is equal?
It isn't.
Would the air not just stay where it is?
Sorry,
it's not
because
equal.
there's no
It's not equal.
pushing the air in or out.
An absolute pressure.
I just didn't. Am I going nuts? Am I going nuts? Did I not just get clarity from you? You just told us that you put a pressure meter on it and it was at 14.7. Oh
Right.
dear. Is it that you think that when you've got 14.7 psi in your tyres, it's the same as atmospheric pressure? Is that what you believe? Because it seems that you're arguing that. You think 14.7 in a tyre is the same as atmospheric pressure, do you?
Well, you guys seem to think that...
Don't tell us what we think.
air-
Don't tell us what we think.
the air
I'm getting
inside-
clarity from
the
you.
air inside
It's
the
all right,
container
Highlander.
is the same
Highlander,
as the
I know you're going to
atmosphere.
wiggle and squirm. I realise that. I was getting clarity from you. I'd already trapped you by asking you how you got the measurement of 14.7. Coincidentally, the same as atmospheric pressure, because you are under the impression, incorrectly so, that when you put 14.7 psi in a tyre, you've actually got atmospheric pressure in the tyre. No. The zero would be atmospheric pressure on a tyre pressure gauge. Clearly you didn't know that.
Well, I was going down that route because you guys make the assumption that the gas pressure inside a container is the same as atmospheric pressure.
No, we've not. I've told you twice. This is the second time. Don't tell us what we claim. You've just asked the question. If the tyre has 14.7 psi based on a measurement that you've got from a gauge at a garage, what will happen? The gas, when punctured, will fill the available volume. The available volume being everything outside of that tyre. That's what will happen. It will dissipate. Now, that was the answer you got. And you said, no. It's at atmospheric pressure. Highlighting your incorrect assertion or assumption that 14.7 on a pressure gauge at a garage, gas station, petrol station, whatever you want to call it, is actually atmospheric pressure. It isn't. The zero would be atmospheric pressure, and that's not what you asked him to explain. But after it explained that it would disperse, you said no, it wouldn't. It would be the same as atmospheric pressure. Just a misapprehension about how a bloody tyre gauge works at a garage. Pretty lowbrow stuff we're not understanding here, highbrow Mr. Highlander. No. Lowbrow Mr. Moron. That's not how a tyre pressure works. Zero is atmospheric pressure, not 14.7. That would be a differential of, guess what? 14.7 versus atmospheric pressure.
In other words,
Right,
there's
so you
29.4 psi.
the air-
Hold on.
The gas
In other
pressure
words,
inside
Highlander.
a sealed container
In other words,
is not
Highlander.
the same as atmospheric pressure.
Highlander. In other words, there is 29.4 psi in that tire.
So just to round this back to the question you didn't want to answer from Anthony, given that zero, right, not 14.7, is actually 14.7, where did you get that 14.7 from, given that you believe the sky is a vacuum?
Yeah.
Right, so
And would you have been able to measure that?
When you're saying
Everyone stop
atmospheric.
rumpusing. I've got to do it again now. Right, given that you've got a misapprehension that the tyre pressure at 14.7 is the same as atmospheric pressure, when it's actually zero on your gauge and yet we still have atmospheric gas pressure at 14.7 psi. So how did you get that gas pressure then, given that there's an endless vacuum in your religion for that gas to dissipate into? How have we got 14.7? How have we got what your gauge says is 0 actually 14.7 psi?
I understand what you're saying. So my question to you now is, you can confirm that when you speak about the gas pressure inside a sealed container, you know and can confirm that that's not the same as atmospheric pressure. Yeah?
No, a jam jar has got
Did you
atmospheric
call
pressure. Owen a crayon muncher?
No, I did not.
God, got a soundbite guy.
What the hell?
Can I point out that atmospheric implies a sphere, and perhaps a more proper term would be ambient pressure?
Yeah, I like that. Ambient pressure. I like that a lot.
Highlander.
Given that 0 is actually 14.7 psi at sea level, where would that come from? How would we have that if there's a vast space for that to fill? Called a sky vacuum in your heliocentric religion. Are you just wrapping your head around the fact that 0 is actually 14.7?
No, I already said to you that I understand what you said. Yeah? And then I asked, when you speak about gas pressure inside a sealed container, you know and can confirm that that's not the same as atmospheric pressure.
No, it is. Unless you've pressurized it. So if I just take a jam jar and put a lid on it, inside that it's got the same pressure as outside. If it didn't, the glass might explode if it was lower. Or it would try and force the lid off if it was higher. So yeah, we definitely know we've got 14.7 psi of gas pressure at sea level. That is definitely the case. And we're trying to ascertain how we'd have that if the sky was a vacuum.
And if you didn't think it could work that way, why would you put air in a tire, to use that example?
I was just trying to use the tire as an example because the tire is the thing that you use as an example all the time.
Yeah, if you've got a tire with a call him a differential crayon pressure. Yeah, I'm going to have to cut down the numbers in the room for the after show, just because I can't see who's doing that.
That's actually quite funny.
Blair's the one that's doing that.
No, man.
We'll find out if it happens again. So yeah, so if we've got a sky vacuum, a vast endless space for gas pressure to disperse into, the tire example comes into play because with a minimal differential, like 1 psi difference, so 14.7 psi outside the tire, 15.7 psi inside the tire, or 1 on your tire pressure gauge at the petrol station. When you press the valve, the gas, which is pressurized in the tire, wants to escape and reach an equilibrium with the surrounding air. Now, that's a very small differential. Now, here on Earth, we've got 14.7 psi, and space is claimed to be 10 to the minus 17 torr. So not just a 1 psi difference between the very minimal amount of air you've pumped into the tyre versus the atmospheric pressure we definitely experience, but orders of magnitude difference between the pressure we breathe and the claim of a sky vacuum. But apparently, even though it's orders of magnitude more in terms of the differential, we don't lose gas to the volume that it could occupy. It violates natural law, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy isn't increasing. Magic.
Right, so you're saying that the air pressure next to the vacuum of space is 14.7 psi?
No, that's what we have at sea level.
Right, so what is it in the Earth's upper atmosphere?
Lower than that. Who cares?
Right, so why are you comparing the vacuum of space with 14.7 psi then?
Because that's what we have.
I'll
explain. I'll explain.
Figured out who it is.
Who?
I know who it is. It's the big guy, the BIG. You just muted him.
Thank you.
He's gone now.
Perfect. So, because there's a claim of a gas void, no gas, an empty space that the gas could fill. Now, by virtue of us having gas pressure in the first place, we can maintain 14.7 psi at the point of production, if you will, where the gas level is higher. So if I give you something as an analogy, if I have a kettle and I turn it on to the point where it's boiling and I tape the switch on so it remains boiling permanently, and then I put my thumb an inch above that spout where the gas is being produced, it will burn my thumb. Now, if I put my finger or my thumb a meter above the spout, it might not even feel very hot. I might notice it, but it might not be capable of scalding me because it's dissipated based on the fact that it was being produced at the ground. Now, if I go a mile in the air, the chances are I won't ever encounter any of the gas particles that have been produced by that kettle because they've dissipated. But in order to have the gas, or in fact the liquid I boiled in the first place, I'd need a container. Because if the claim that the sky was a vacuum was true, we'd never have any gas in the first place to maintain 14.7 psi at ground level, where the gases are produced. So regardless of the fact that they're thinning, like my kettle, as you go higher, you wouldn't have any of my example if the sky was a vacuum. It would all immediately dissipate into the available volume.
Yeah, but if the pressure's equal, then the gas wouldn't go anywhere, would it?
I mean, the gas is moving freely and randomly in all directions at all times. Never stops. What are you talking about? Wow.
He's having problems with dynamic and static system.
Well, what can I say? On that long, protracted silence, I'll say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Another enormous thank you to all of today's debating panel on both Discord and G+ for making this after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!